Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Julie Alsaker, who is a holistic nutritionist, a doctor of naturopathy, and she's trained in genetics and functional blood analysis. And today we talk about sugar. We talk about the detrimental impact of sugar in our lives. And Julie has the stance that no sugar, not even in moderation, is okay for the body. She debunks a lot of myths around sugar. And if you think that sugar isn't highly addictive, I challenge you to cut it out of your life for 2 weeks because it is infused in 70% of the products that we consume. So this admittedly was one of the hardest episodes to record because I don't want to hear this information because sugar is so hard to give up. But this information keeps coming in different avenues into my life and into my circle. And so I know it to be true. So I challenge you to make your way all the way through this episode, despite that it might be hard to hear this information, despite the fact that we don't want to do this because sugar is so good and so addictive. Please, if you're enjoying these episodes, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I'm excited about this topic and a little bit nervous because I think you're going to tell me some things that I don't want to hear.
Yeah, I have a habit of that.
Yeah, right. So I think we're going to talk about the detrimental impact of sugar on our body. But before we dive into all of this, I would love to know how your interest in this topic came about and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to summarize, I was kind of sick as a kid. The doctors officially just called me sickly and just said she's always going to be sickly. And I was fortunate to, when I was 15, run into a crazy natural lady who did the weirdo herb things and was a massage therapist, and she helped heal me. So I went from, if somebody had a sickness, I was going to catch it. Or when I was in sports, because I was in a lot of sports, I was always spraining ankles or spraining wrists, or if something could go wrong, it typically did. And so when I met her, and then all of a sudden my body didn't get injured easily, and my gut wasn't a just complete mess, and my energy wasn't down the drains, in part because of the supplements, but in part because she said, you can't keep eating sugar like this because it is feeding the wrong bacteria in your gut, and it is the root cause of why you're getting sick. And so that my journey started when I was 15. My first sugar is poison board, I started that on Pinterest when I was 21. So back in 2001. And then I worked as a medical sign language interpreter for 20 years while simultaneously collecting certifications as a holistic nutritionist and in all the modalities that I was interested in, fitness. Then I got a traditional doctor of naturopathy. So not accredited. I'm not a doctor, but I'm a traditional naturopath. And then I got trained in genetics and functional blood analysis. So I have certification in that as well. So I kind of, like a lot of people around COVID, reevaluated, do I want to keep going into the hospitals and clinics and participating in a world that I respect but don't agree with their philosophies? Like, yeah, I think there's a wonderful purpose for it, but I think that trying to say that health is part of medicine is like an oxymoron. I think you do health, and then when you don't have health, you go to medicine. Yeah. So let's maintain our health, and then if something happens, a car accident or an acute situation that you get a disease that you need immediate intervention for, then you go to medicine. So that's why I diverged, started my own practice. And now I try to get people to, triggering word, but I try to get them to not self-harm. If we know something is bad, if it is proven and we do it anyway. Anytime we're knowingly doing something harmful to ourselves, that does something to our psyche when we believe it's okay to do that. And so I spread my message.
Once you started cutting out sugar, did you cut out like all sugar and processed foods?
Yeah. So the thing is food is delicious. And so I am not against whole real food. So my daughter makes an ridiculously amazing carrot cake. There's no sugar in there. We use honey for sweetener, right? You look at Michelin star restaurants, they're using ingredients, they're using food, and that's what makes it
Yeah.
delicious and amazing. Well, we're doing the same thing. We're just not using refined sugar. And the idea behind refined sugar, beyond the genes that it impacts for our taste receptors, and then there's actual cells in our gut lining that connect with the gut brain axis to create a satiation factor that totally bypasses the receptors of sweetness. So it's there is an effect that our brain then will still want it. Even if we can't taste sweetness, the brain will still crave it. So if you know people that lost their taste buds over COVID,
Yeah.
they could eat something sweet and then they would still crave more of that, even though they couldn't taste it, because of those
Oh,
cells
wow.
in the gut.
Yeah.
This is why it is a highly addicted substance. And then you take sugar how it was 100 years ago versus how it is now. Well, how it is now is you've got residual pesticides in it. You have phosphoric acid in it. You have sulfur dioxide in it. You have calcium hydroxide. These are all chemicals that are used in the production of it. And yes, there's only trace amounts. I mean, they will say just trace amounts. Trace amounts add up. So if we
Right.
take away all the effects, right? You've got a study that was recently done that collected 8,000 previous studies of the effects of sugar. And it had over 50 negative physiological impacts of having sugar. So you have 5 tablespoons of sugar. You have now reduced your immune system's function for, I believe it's 10 hours. I could be getting some of there's like I said, 8,000 studies. So the exact measurements and time are up for debate. But the fact is sugar suppresses the immune system. That's just one of over 50 physiological impacts. Now let's add all these trace amounts of chemicals where the average kid is eating more than what is considered generally regarded as safe. In one can of pop, they are exceeding the daily amount for a grown man.
Wow.
And then we have flu season. Well, actually it's kids going back to school. They're having their school lunches, they're having their pop, they're getting more in that hour of sugar than a grown man is supposed to have in 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Their immune systems are compromised. Then they're all hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, they're inside a building and they're not getting vitamin D. And
Yeah.
then we go, oh no, it's flu season. No,
Yeah.
it is nutrient deficient season, and it is fill our bodies with crap season. And so if we would pay attention to the legitimate research that's been done, now we can remove ourselves from that hamster wheel of sickness. My family doesn't get sick.
Yeah.
We just don't. We used to, back when I did sugar in moderation, because I didn't want to be that mom. I was that mom for like the first 5 years of their lives. And then when they realized how different they were from other kids, they went to an event and someone's like, do you want brownies? And they go, what are brownies? And then they felt kind of stupid, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody else wants it. And then I got the cultural pressure of, oh, you're that mom. And you kind of get made fun of and put down. And
Yeah.
so I said moderation. And then my kids started getting sick. They started catching stuff when before they caught nothing.
Yeah.
And now we don't do moderation. And now we don't get sick.
Yeah. Interesting. So if somebody was on the fence about this, what besides like a getting sick and a lowered immune system, what are some of the other big bullet points of why sugar is not okay, even in moderation?
Yes, it is so impactful on the neurochemicals and the brain's ability to function at its full capacity and its full potential. So
Yeah.
you look at kids with bad behavior. There's so much more to it, right? These are our kids don't want to be bad. And I use it in quotes because they're not trying to make poor choices. They're
Right.
not just greedy little buggers, right? There's so much involved in this, of course, from the perspective of the attachments that they have with their parents, how they're spoken to. All of that matters.
Yeah.
And if you do all of that right, and then give them a neurotoxin, and then get upset when they are not putting A and B, together. Instead, they're going all over the place. You're saying, why won't you focus? Why can't you focus at school? Why aren't you being kind to your brother? Well, it's because we have these little drug addicts in our home, and they're going through withdrawal, and they're acting like a little drug addict going through withdrawal.
Yeah.
And then we get mad at them, but they're having a physiological impact. So you take away the thing that prevents them from being wholly who they are.
Yeah.
And then you get to experience your kids authentically without this brain damaging situation going on. And it's beautiful because there's an emotional connection that I cannot emphasize enough. There is an emotional connection that cannot happen when who they are is suppressed by that chemical interference.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Relationships soar. Their ability to control themselves soar. Their happiness, because 70% of our serotonin is made in our gut, and our gut bacteria is very important for that. It is what does the production. So if you are feeding the gut bacteria that does not produce that, and in fact harms the gut bacteria that does produce that, you can't have the feeling if you don't have the neurochemicals that are required to experience a feeling. And this is why a person with depression, they can have lots of money. They could have a beautiful spouse, wonderful kids, all these things. And they're going, why? Why am I so sad? They don't have the neurochemicals necessary. And that could be genetically based, where they need some support there.
Yeah.
And it could be the things that they're consuming prevent their body from being able to produce it. So you take away this suppression by feeding the bad gut bacteria. You stop feeding that bad gut bacteria. You feed the good bacteria. Now, all of a sudden, you have these waves of joy that you didn't experience before, because now you have the neurochemicals that are sitting there just ready and waiting.
Wow.
And then when you have that, you do your gratitude journaling or whatever, you are overcome with this immensely joyful feeling, satisfaction, contentment, things that you didn't feel before. And it's a matter of taking out the poisons.
Yeah. So if somebody was going to experiment with that, how long would they be able to cut out sugar before they would notice a significant impact?
For the people that come to me with pretty substantial diagnoses and disease that's completely not related to their emotional regulation, typically when they cut out sugar completely within a couple weeks, they've had a massive reduction in their symptoms, especially joint pain. That's a huge one that drops really fast within 21 days of doing an anti-inflammatory way of eating. Your C-reactive protein, your CRP blood marker, is able to reduce by 20 to 30% in just 21 days. But I usually see it about that 2-week point where they're messaging. The first couple of weeks, they're messaging me going, "You're the worst person I've ever met. I can't believe you're doing this to me." And then about that 2-week mark is when they go, "Okay, you're not completely crazy. I think I might like you again." And then depending on their level of illness, eventually they're messaging me going, "I know you told me I had no idea how healthy I could feel, but oh my word, I didn't know that this was possible."
Wow.
And a foundation of that is not harming ourselves with things that we know are harmful.
Yeah. Is it about the same amount of time before the cravings go away?
The cravings are statistically, they say around 2 weeks.
Okay.
I don't subscribe to that because of genetics. And so if I have a person with a TAS1R3 that has a specific variant where they are very susceptible to cravings for sweets. See, there's a TSAR one. There's two different ones. Anyway, it's the cravings of sweets. One person is going to be able in a couple days to be like, well, that wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
And another person is going to be like shaking and in tears because they're going to be struggling so hard, because it's not just those sweet receptors. It is their MAOA, their HTR2B, and that is your ability to control impulses. It's your COMT and its ability to impact how you experience dopamine. It's the SLC64, something like that, 6A4, that impacts your serotonin.
Yeah.
So these genetic things, they're an explanation, not an excuse.
Yeah.
But that explanation means a lot when you've got two siblings, two sisters, let's say.
Yeah.
One that always struggles with their weight, that always struggles with craving, that always struggles with being neurodivergent. And the other sister who's just fit and energetic and eats whatever they want and is able to control their food better. And the family going, why can't you just be more like your sister? You just have to work harder. No, they have completely different genes that they inherited. And this person, their adipose tissue doesn't release like this person does. So their fat tissue, it hangs on for dear life because they have a gene that says, don't you dare let go of this fat. I love it. I want it. You're not allowed to let it go. Whereas this person has a gene that goes, I hate fat. I want it to go away. How is that fair to hold them to the same standard?
Right.
It's really, genetics is about bringing compassion in and then supporting, bridging those gaps. Because once we know the gap is there, then the technology exists to support it. And then they don't feel crazy anymore.
So let's talk about carbs, because I'm one of those people that could cut out sugar easily, but take my salty, crunchy stuff away, and I really struggle.
Yes.
And I know that that's converts to sugar. So let's talk a little bit about carbs and processed foods.
So carbs specifically, I am all about carbs that come from nature. So the difficulty is with something like a potato. If you cook something in a wet environment, like if you boil potatoes, it is going to have a different physiological impact than if you fry it. Even if you're not, like, for the love, don't use refined seed oil. So we're talking instead, you're using coconut oil or avocado oil, something with a high temp point that doesn't have all the chemicals that the refined seed oils do.
Right.
But let's say you're doing potatoes, you've sliced them up, you're dropping them into the avocado oil. They are still producing what's called advanced glycation end products. Ages. They age you. More wrinkles, more aging of your organs in your body. And the more you age, the more susceptibility to illness. Now, if you're a person that does wildly healthy things, you don't ever eat the refined sugars, you are not eating a lot of empty carbs, you're eating nature's carbs, then every once in a while you prepare it in not the healthiest way because it's girls' weekend. Now, you're not going out on a bender, drinking a ton and eating cupcakes with refined sugar. You're not doing all that stuff. You're having real food prepared in not the best way. That's where I like moderation. So have the carbs that are nature's carbs, your vegetables. Sourdough bread has been tested repeatedly and shown to be really a great option. Your steel milled flours are, unfortunately, you consume it and they just switch over to glucose. So, I mean, it's just another fun way to consume glucose. And at the same time, the people that eat a ton of protein, if they're eating above that 28 to 30 grams in one sitting, anything in your body, any macro, whether it's fat, protein, or your carbs, get converted over to glucose when there's extra. It's called gluconeogenesis. So your body will take that fat, or the body will take that protein, and it will change it into glucose, just like carbs change into glucose.
Right.
So the idea is to consume things where you're not binging on something and having so much extra that your body is able to utilize it.
Yeah. I love this topic about sourdough because I make sourdough bread, and I find all these people that have gluten sensitivity, they come over and they just chow down on my sourdough bread. And I don't feel that like um, rock in my stomach after I eat sourdough that I do with other breads.
Yes. Sourdough it's fantastic because there's not only the living component of it from the fermentation and the bacteria and the yeast and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but it's also for people that don't have the celiac gene. So there's people that
Yeah.
have that think that they're celiac because they react to gluten,
Yes.
when in fact they're dealing with some permeability of their gut lining where
Mhm.
proteins are coming out and their body is responding with an immune response, where really they just need to fix that permeability and they could probably reincorporate things well versus
Yeah.
having a celiac gene where that's just that's a genetic thing that we're going to work around that. And even celiacs, they I encourage them not to eat sourdough just because it will build up. The gluten
Yeah.
exposure builds up. But the other thing with gluten is that it mimics, from a composition standpoint, thyroid tissue. It's so interesting. Gluten and thyroid tissue have, from our immune system, it looks and it's like those are really similar. So for people that have thyroid issues and they've gone gluten free and it's helped their symptoms, they can have sourdough bread with virtually no impact at all on
Yeah.
triggering an autoimmune response.
Yeah. What about an underactive thyroid?
The thyroid in general, I never look at any component of the body in isolation.
Yeah.
So if it's an underactive thyroid, well, I'm going to want to know, what does your iron panel look like? Not
Yeah.
just the serum iron. I want to know what your TIBC, your total iron binding capacity, your ferritin, because when one system is off, it's kind
Yeah.
of like looking at a town and there's all these houses. There's going to be multiple houses on fire, and you're going to need to figure out where the fire started, because the thyroid, a lot of the thyroid issues start in the gut because that's where your T4 converts to T3.
Hmm.
So instead of going and treating the thyroid with thyroid medication for the
Yeah.
rest of your life, which I was told in my 20s, oh, you have hypothyroidism, you have Hashimoto's,
Yeah.
you need to be on this pill for the rest of your life. Well, I'm not. I don't. I took it for a couple of years because I didn't know better.
Yeah.
At that time, I had my holistic nutrition and I had naturopathy, but I didn't have the genetics and the functional blood analysis training
Yeah.
yet. Well, I didn't think it was able to be healed because I was told you can't heal this. Well, I don't have Hashimoto's anymore and I don't have hypothyroidism anymore, and I'm not on any
Yeah.
medication because I fixed my gut.
Yes.
So that's the thing with any single thing. I'm always going to look at the whole. There's something going on.
Mhm.
Let's find out where it is. And you can't have the root cause without the genes because they're literally your design. They are the
Yeah.
root of you.
Yeah. I recently heard something where if there's a food that we think is healthy and change the we alter it. So like my example would be rice cakes
Mhm.
or popcorn or things like that we think are healthy. When we've changed the molecular structure of that food, then it converts it to sugar. Is that something you've
Well,
heard?
it it depends. I wouldn't count that as a blanket statement
Yeah.
because, like I said, literally anything can be converted to sugar.
Yeah.
And if we take something like popcorn, you pop it, well, now it's become edible. So anything that
Yeah.
you make edible can then convert to sugar. But I mean, in essence, if we chop a cucumber, we've altered it.
Right.
It's not going to be any
Right.
more sugar than if I just bitten it off the cucumber, because everything we eat goes through the process of the enzymes and saliva, the chewing. It's different from here to here to here to
Yeah.
here. It's chemically and from a compound perspective, it's different at each stage.
Yeah.
But what we do to it before we put it in here, it does absolutely affect how the body's going to respond to it. Steel mill is a great example. When we ripped all the fiber out of
Yeah.
all of the wheats and everything like that, it changed how it converts so much faster.
Hmm.
And because of really great research, now we know things on how we can still work with that. So
Yeah.
if my husband loves pasta, we don't ever have pasta because we don't have refined flour. However, I'm learning to make sourdough pasta from
Oh,
scratch.
interesting.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Um, and it is still a carb. It doesn't change the fact that it's a carb, and it doesn't change the fact that his body, his genetics have a predisposition to not dealing with carbs well.
Yeah.
Well, what we do is we have the research that says 15 minutes before your meal, you have some apple cider vinegar.
Yes, I've
So
heard that.
I have up in my fridge, I've got apple cider vinegar shots. You take it 15
Yes.
minutes before you're going to eat a meal that has carbs. And instead of your body spiking the glucose and
Yes.
then crashing, now it's this nice arc. And that's what we want. It's
Yeah.
sustained energy. And your body can still grab energy from stored energy in addition to the food you ate because you
Yeah.
didn't go straight up and block the usage of the stored energy, aka
Yeah. Yeah. I guess something I just found out recently that really surprised me is that oatmeal does a really huge sugar spike.
yeah.
And I've always kind of prided myself on my kid has this gigantic bowl of oatmeal every morning with no sugar, just plain oatmeal with like bananas or whatever, or like hemp seed or on top. And I've heard that just converts to sugar.
It does spike the blood sugar way faster than if you were to do eggs, even
Hmm.
eggs and then a banana afterwards. So if we formulate our meal in a way where we're having our protein and fats in the beginning and then having
Hmm.
the carbs and starches and stuff at the end,
Yeah.
that's still going to level it out more. But with the oatmeal and the banana, there is no precursor to
Mm.
manage that. So that's going to just it's all carbs. So it's
Yeah.
going to shoot up faster. And then it's going to, when your blood sugar is dropping, which when it has a fast spike, it's going to drop. During the drop is when your ghrelin starts impacting, raising in your brain. So then you're hungry. So that's where then snacking comes in. And
Yeah.
we tease. I used to feed my girls oatmeal too. I mean,
Yep.
it was 15 years ago. That's what we were taught. Even in holistic naturopathy, we thought we were doing the right thing. And then when new information comes out, then we learn and then
Yeah.
we adapt. But they had first breakfast, second breakfast, the lunch, second lunch. I mean, because my kids were always eating and I
Yeah.
felt really good because it was all organic and natural and homemade and not full of pesticides. I mean, all the stuff.
Right.
And then to find out I was doing it wrong,
Yeah.
we're doing our best. Even at this exact moment, with all the stuff I know, I'm still doing my best. It's not
Yeah.
perfect. I'm not going to do perfect, but I'm going to take everything I know and use it to the
Yeah.
best of my ability.
So let's talk about other sugars such as maple syrup, honey, monk fruit, and then what else am I leaving out? I know there's
Like
the
the
ones, the chemical ones.
erythritol and
We're not going to talk about
stevia.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of research that's been done on the impact of fructose. So,
Hmm.
or fructose. So we tend to lean into the refined sugar, to the glucose. There is information that fructose has some pretty severe impacts when it comes to disease as well.
Hmm.
However, there is just something because I have all this genetics and blood work and everything like that, but there's also just something in my soul where I go, nature has a plan, nature
Yeah.
has a purpose. And this, I mean, we're going back to ancient times where honey and the tapping of the maple trees, that's hundreds of years old. And so for me to go, no, there's too much fructose, I can understand that I'm not going to want to just become a sweets addict
Yeah.
on different sweets. I am going to allow them in moderation because they are in their whole form. And I do something that because I'm ancient wisdom, traditional wisdom, and current modern science, the modern science, they hate this part. So I'm hopping over to this part. I do muscle testing.
Yeah.
And so we'll be going through the grocery store, and if the kids want something, I'll be, let me pull your fingers, because we do the O method, and I will muscle test them. And if they muscle test strong with it, then it's something that we get to have.
Yeah.
So a person, and a honey is the only thing I have here to muscle test clients with. There are people that when their A1C is out of control, they either have diabetes or prediabetes. They're
Yeah.
not going to test strong with honey, because their body needs a break from all the sugar.
Yeah.
Whereas when a body is healthy, now every healthy person I've tested with honey tests incredibly strong. The body communicates, the body knows.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And so I lean into that, because it just doesn't make sense to me that this thing that nature provides would be bad for us if you're healthy.
Yeah. And is honey and maple syrup are in the same category, I'm assuming?
Honey is more whole, because the maple syrup goes through the boiling process. So we use maple syrup in a lot more moderation. However, I get maple syrup from my brother's trees. I mean, we see the whole process, and it's just and we muscle test strong with it. And so with that, then I'm going to lean into the traditional wisdom that goes, my body knows how to communicate with me. I know how to listen. I also know what diseases are possible and which ones are just, I'm good, I don't have to worry about them. And then I'm going to measure all that against each other and just live a really awesome, healthy life.
Have you found that all honey is created equal, as in local honey and unpasteurized versus pasteurized?
Yeah, no, it muscle tests completely different.
Yeah.
Like because you're killing off anything above 115 degrees is going to kill off the enzymes. You take the enzymes away and you no longer have a whole food. So, and especially your local raw honey is going to have different disease prevention impact than something from far away, because the pollens and everything that you're exposed to in your community, that's what your body knows. That's what your immune system knows. And so then you add on the local honey, where the bees got everything from this environment, and it adds this layer of support for health. That's incredible. And there's been research done on that. I don't have it that's something you can Google.
Yeah, I've heard that too. What about Manuka honey? There's this big fad about Manuka honey, and it's so ridiculously expensive.
It's crazy expensive.
Yes.
I have some over here. I haven't opened it. I just wanted to muscle test with it.
It's like
That's
liquid gold.
Yes. I love muscle testing, because it lets me know good, better, best, right? So our local raw honey is great. I know the people, I know the bees. I love bees. I have like a Save the Bees cover on my laptop. The Manuka honey, it muscle tests way stronger than our local
Interesting.
honey. It's chemically different. And so I save that for if we were to get a cold or something like that. Then we'll break out the Manuka honey, because it's designed to be more potent. And I've heard that it also doesn't taste as great as your local raw honey.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm not going to be putting it in my recipes. I'm not going to cook it at all. Some of the honey that we use, we'll use in we'll make a pavlova or something with the egg whites, and add a little honey to sweeten it up before we bake it. I'm not baking the Manuka. I'm getting every ounce of those enzymes that I paid for. So,
because doesn't it change the property of honey when you heat it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And then what about monk fruit sweetener?
So monk fruit, the testing shows that it is a pretty good option. It shows that it is not as impactful on the gut biome as something like, there was the study of erythritol, which everybody got their panties in a bunch over it. And then there was subsequent reports going, oh, wait, that was a bad study. It wasn't done properly. Oops, it didn't actually prove all those things we said it proved. The study showed that it was damaging good gut bacteria, the diversity, all of those things. To some extent, your stevia and your erythritol do show to have some impact. Is it enough that you should never ever have it? That's where my clients just get so frustrated. Muscle tests.
Yeah.
Muscle tests with your monk fruit, and then it will, or your stevia or your erythritol, or just listen to how you feel. If
Yeah.
I make something with this and I eat it, when I'm done eating, I don't go take a nap. I feel energized.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some energy that's diverted to the digestive process, but this whole, just weight in your gut and exhaustion and fatigue and everything that is just joked about in corporate America, right? Oh, the after lunch slump. I guess nobody's going to be productive for the next hour. That's not
Yeah.
how we're designed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so what are some of the common myths? I'm not sure if we've touched on all of them, but about sugar.
Well, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that sugar is okay in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
You've given them once more, and you have reduced their immune system's ability to function.
Right.
As a parent, how do you feel about that? If you don't feel good about that, then maybe you don't have s'mores.
Yeah.
So what we do instead is we take a banana, and I wouldn't eat anything that tinfoil actually touched, but it's around the outside of the banana. Slice it open, put some zero sugar, um, like lilies. You could use the lilies, dark chocolate chunks. You stuff
Yeah.
it in that banana and you close it, and then you wrap it with tinfoil and you throw it in the bonfire.
Yeah.
Leave it for about 5 minutes. And then what you're eating is just this delicious thing that tastes
Yeah.
like I remember a banana split would taste. It's been a couple decades, but it's delicious. Everybody loves it. We make it for all of our sugar eating friends because we don't have marshmallows. We call them cancer balls in our house. Oh, we were at our friend's house and they had cancer balls. And so there's alternatives like that where you don't need to do the, I call it the moderation myth,
Yeah.
because we take something where there's studies that show that it's wildly addictive. Now, there's random outliers in even the fitness world that'll say there's no proof that sugar is addictive. Well, take my job and try to get your clients to quit sugar and tell
Yeah.
me it's not addictive.
Right.
The
Right.
Quit Sugar Summit is wonderful. They bring experts, PhD researchers from all over the world talking about how it's critical that you don't eat any of it because it is addictive. So to tell someone to eat an addictive substance in moderation, to tell our kids, we're going to
Yeah.
trigger your dopamine and your reward system repeatedly, but don't get mad when you can't have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the biggest myth that I like to attack is that moderation is a myth. It is ineffective. It will
Yeah.
keep the cravings going. It will lead you to eat more ultra processed foods. It will lead towards then the diseases that those ultra processed foods create.
Yeah.
And you can live without it. You can live eating delicious,
Mm-hmm.
fun things. There's always a substitute, not a mimicry. I don't like
Yeah.
mimicking, but there's always something different. And I like to say better.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to feel so incredibly proud of yourself because instead of believing, because the thought controls our behavior, right? Our beliefs control our behavior.
Yeah.
So if I believe I am completely capable of giving up sugar, and say it until you believe it. I completely believe I can give up sugar. I can do this. They say that the opposite of courage is conformity. So it takes
Mm.
courage
Yeah.
to say everything in our food industry has added sugar. Over
Yeah.
70% of the food in the grocery store has added sugar to
Yeah.
keep you going back for more. You get to have the courage to say, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I can do better. And then you not only have the healing from not eating it, you have this emotional healing from destroying the lies that you've heard your whole life that, well, you can't give up sugar. It's too hard. You're not capable. You break all of those chains and you have healing. And it just elevates you to this level of health that people don't understand is the norm. Joint
Yeah.
pain isn't the norm. Headaches aren't the norm. Cramps aren't the norm. They're common, but they're not normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I love this.
I get really excited.
It's hard. It's
Too
hard.
much
I mean,
sugar.
I just think about like how our schools boast nutrition and all of that, and then how they serve chocolate milk in the cafeteria. And at our school, the last 2 years, the school lunches have been free, and we've been having our child bring his lunch. But I know that if the kids don't eat something, there's like a free bin where they have like Jello and whatever the junk is that they have. And I know my kid's going in there and eating it.
Yeah.
And I know he's getting those chocolate milks, even though we're sending him his own lunch, and he's sneaking it in there.
Yeah.
Um,
And you can't blame him because it's addictive. Our kids are already addicts.
Yeah.
And so it's a delicate thing where you need to pull him back from the addiction, but food,
Yeah.
you don't get to quit food cold turkey.
Yeah.
You have to eat food. And when they have the choices, just like the mice that chose the sugar water over the cocaine, or I'm sorry,
totally. The heroin,
water,
right? Yeah.
right? The fact that kids are going to sneak something when it's being offered is a
Yeah.
no-brainer. So the
Yeah.
issue isn't with the child sneaking it, it's with the school offering something that is proven.
Yeah.
And this isn't new research. This is over 100 years of research
Yeah.
proving that it's harmful. But it's affordable. It's inexpensive.
Mm-hmm. And that chocolate milk has as much sugar as like a soda.
Yeah. It's so bad. It's so bad. And the food coloring and the amount of minerals that it's pulling out of his body, which minerals are necessary for the brain to function at a high level. So now you're dumbing down the children, you're reducing their immune system.
Yeah. And there's this culture of praising kids with treats, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you got an A, let's go out for an ice cream. Or, oh, you did such a great job at soccer. There is this culture of giving kids sugar as rewards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I think it has to do with it being cheap, but you're also going to make the kid happy because they're an addict getting a hit.
Yeah.
And so if you want to give like something from Five Below, there's these options of giving them something.
An experience. Give them an experience.
Let them earn points to get to do some like fun track and field day or something.
Yeah.
And you nailed it. That's where reward, whether it's for us, because it's, we want to celebrate something. We don't have to celebrate with something that harms us.
Yeah.
We can celebrate by, okay, we're going to go whitewater rafting. Woohoo, celebrate.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Julie. This has been amazing and super eye-opening. And I knew I would hear some things I didn't want to hear about the no moderation piece. But how can people connect with you, and what are some of the things that you offer? And I know you have a lot of offerings and a lot of workbooks and things like that out there.
Yes. So I'm trying to get better at being active on social media and giving some tips and stuff there. And that's just at my personal Facebook page. So Julie.Alsaker is the Facebook and Instagram, or you can go to my website at luxbioanalytics.com. And the main thing I offer, I have a workbook. It's on Amazon, and it's just giving a broad overlay of the things that are available to you, even from just a mindset perspective. Because like I said, beliefs dictate behavior. So if you're sitting there going, well, I can't ever get healthy. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
The workbook helps with that. And then I have what's called an executive analysis. So I do the genetics, I analyze your blood work. We have a couple consultations. That's a pretty significant investment. The labs themselves are pretty hefty. But for the person that wants to know, why was I like this in my childhood? Why am I like this now? And what's to come? It's a little crystal ball that it's not rocket science. It's just genetics. And so then we can take where you're going and you can say, but this is where I want to be. And then we go, okay, this is what we do to get there. So that's my base level program to work one-on-one with me. Otherwise, just follow me on social media. I've got a group on Facebook. I think it's called The Extraordinary Woman, because I just think that we can feel really good about ourselves unapologetically. So join the group and ask questions. I'm happy to answer, even when a person's not ready or able to yet fully invest in themselves for that genetic process.
Yeah, perfect. Well,
and
thank
I
you.
did write another book, but I want to tell you about it real quick. So it's called Radical Freedom. And if you look on Amazon, it's the main author on it is Jess Hughes. I'm one of the co-authors. There's 102 of us. that
My gosh.
wrote chapters in the book. And it's, again, a lot about mindset. It's number one in 19 categories in 4 countries. It just
Wow.
released 2 weeks ago. And the
Congratulations.
stories of these authors, I'm excited because, yeah, my story's in there. Yay. But these other authors that I've gotten to read their stories, I've gotten to meet them and how they are experiencing radical freedom in their lives, to me, is you read these and it just inspires health even more. They're not all about health. A lot of them are artists, fine artists, and adventurers, but it inspires health because radical health is a foundation for radical freedom.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so I would encourage you all to get that book because it is so, so good. These stories are amazing.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for your time and for your expertise and for this conversation. And I'm super appreciative of you today.
Thank you. I was happy to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.